think the value of being heard is like a basic human desire.
Yeah.
You know, human beings just want to be heard, and whether that's coming from a medical scenario, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's, you know, healing trauma, whatever context, you know, like a friend of mine has her kids go to the same school as my son, and she's been having a lot of back and forth with the school about the needs of her kids and individual requirements for them. And her major issue is that she's not being heard, that, you know, they're not listening, they're not implementing, you know, and that feeling of being dismissed, you know, we don't like it as children when adults are like, well, go play, you
We
know.
definitely don't like it as adults.
And we don't like it as adults. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. You know, that need to be heard and that feeling of being ignored or not important or, you know, is really affects us as humans, and that's across the board. You would think that because we all need it, we all recognize that we need to give that to others, but it doesn't always work that way.
No, it really doesn't. Yeah, I found that over the years. I thought it was just like I need someone to understand me, and it was really no. I just need you to listen, just like be here and just listen to what I'm saying. You don't have to help me or coach me. Just kind of be like a mirror for me. Just
Yeah,
yeah, which I've
just
had over the years.
acknowledgement that, you know, even if I disagree or if I you know, can't do anything about it, just acknowledging that that is the other person's experience. Okay,
Mm.
I hear what you're saying. I appreciate that that's what you feel like you're going through. You know, even if it's a disagreement, so even if HR and corporates and, you know, people putting in, I was speaking yesterday to some people involved in the current situation with Ambulance Victoria, which is around workplace bullying and sexual harassment and stuff. And the inability to effectively communicate from management level, okay, well, we acknowledge that this is an issue. We potentially haven't dealt with it ideally in the past. Like, they just don't have that language around it, which increases the level of conflict.
Mm.
So just can't have those conversations, and no one's trained them in how to have those conversations. So that's one of the things that we're looking at supporting
Yeah.
management with that do want to see a change. Is
Mm.
like, okay, so you change. That's how change happens, is you individually change. And then someone sees you change and they go, wow, that's a good change. I want to do that. I'll change. Right. And that's that ripple effect rather than a decree from above. We must all do it like this now, you know. So I think it's a common, you know, it's a thread that comes across any sort of human interaction, is that need to be heard, that need to be acknowledged, and upskilling people to be able to have those conversations in a way that supports them to do that for other human beings, like regardless of role or, you know, hierarchy. Just
Yeah.
as people, wouldn't it be nice if we could just have supportive conversations?
It would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Your face says like, would have saved me a lot of hassle.
Oh, I would have saved me years worth of hassle. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just all the stuff that I've gone through. And I wouldn't have gone through half of it if I just had someone just to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not to be underestimated.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Mm.
Another highly underestimated valuable asset to have is to someone to call you out on your bullshit. And that's my offering as a coach is, you know, I don't have pom-poms. I'm not going to cheer you on. You're doing so great. Like, if your life was great, you probably wouldn't need a coach. Do you know what I mean? So, and people find that challenging. Not everybody's ready to be called out on their bullshit. Like, hey, you know that response you had? Have you noticed that that's the same pattern that you use with this person and this person and this person? Maybe it's you, you know, like let's examine that for, and people are like, whoa, you know. So I think I'm a fun coach, but I definitely call people out on their bullshit
Yeah.
only for the intention of moving forward. Like it's only not to be nasty, but so that people can get out of those loops, those behavior loops, those thought pattern loops, and going, well, maybe if you stop doing it that way, what do you think might happen? Oh, yeah, wow. Imagine if I stopped doing it that way, or having that same dynamic with that same person, like what
Yeah.
if you just stepped out of that loop? Oh shit, that changes things. Cool.
See, I'm
So
not a
yeah.
coach, but I have friends that I've politely suggested that it could be them. Like I show them their patterns, and sometimes it will have a really negative effect to it. Like they'll shut down immediately, which I get. I've
Yeah.
done that before. And other times I'm like, oh, it is me. But and then they like fall into this depression. I'm like, you need to continue, not just know it's you and then just stop, because you're just going to keep repeating.
Yeah, I think the frame around it has to be supportive, and like, the whole goal of pointing those things out is so that you can then be empowered to make a change that shifts you in the direction you go, not split out and then you're like, you're right, I'm a horrible person. Like that's a very unproductive response, so you want to make sure that they're in a place to be able to take that information on board and then leverage off it for the positive. I think that, and that's the difference between a friend and a coach. Your friend is going to go, why do you keep dating these dickheads? Like that's the job of a friend, is to call you out on that sort of stuff. And it's okay, because they'll still be a friend because you're friend. Whereas I guess from a coach point of view, there's not that inherent love between you. There might be really great rapport, but ultimately a coach can probably get away with things, I think, that maybe your friend wants to, like, oh, I don't want to upset them. Whereas a coach can be like, you're paying me to move your life forward, so that's what I'm here to do. So we can sometimes get away with a little bit more sort of bluntness, I think.
And I think that's what makes coaches, the bluntness. Then not being worried what they're going to think or how they're going to act or their response.
It's not about me. I don't need my clients to be my friends. Like, we're friendly, but I don't need them to like. I'm okay if they're angry at me. I'm okay if a client, spends 24 hours seething and like, oh, that really upset me when you said that thing. And I'm like, okay. And after you were upset, what happened? Well, then I realized I needed to. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm all right with you being upset at me if it moves you in the direction that you've told me you want to move in. So and that's the importance of having that training, I think, as a coach, is to not take it all personally. And we're not friends, and you're not paying me to be your mate. You're paying me to get you towards your goals. So I think it's important, as for coaches doing training, is to understand it's not about you. It's 100% about the client, and be okay with being yelled at or not having your client displeased, because that's not actually a requirement. This is entirely my opinion. Some coaches really want to be friends with their clients. Some coaches want to be foster a community where everyone loves each other and we're very supportive. This is just my sort of focus. My goals as a coach is to just get my client where they've told me they want to go, and if sometimes that means a bit of tough love, then that's what they're getting. But not everyone's ready for that.
No, they're not.
Like your friends that shut down and withdraw and be like, oh, what have I done?
But that was me many, many years ago. Someone tried to call me out my bullshit. I'm like, yeah, see you later. I'm happy in my little box over here. Not really, but I thought I was.
That's why it's called the comfort zone, Ray, because it's really comfortable there.
No,
And by virtue of that, everything beyond it is inherently uncomfortable. That's the deal. There's no escaping that. So not everyone's okay with uncomfortable. It's challenging.
Challenging. Find a lot of things challenging lately. like going to circle and doing meditation and breath work and just everything. And yeah, this week was probably my hardest week I've had, because I was in get shit done constantly this week, that I hadn't had a break at all to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I broke down. I think I cried for like 4 days straight.
Needs to get out.
Yeah. And even like I said in the circle last night that yesterday I had a meeting that got cancelled, and I literally stayed in bed. I didn't get up, I didn't eat, I didn't do anything. I just stayed in bed, and I was just on my phone the entire time. And yeah, they pulled me out on it, because they like, that's not resting. That's not rest, because you're on your phone, you're still doing things, you're not resting. You know, they talked about like having a bath or being in a meditation state and doing all these things, and I'm like, felt like rest.
Yeah. I think like it's good to get different perspectives.
Mm.
I personally would say, if it felt like rest to you, and you've got a lot of physical body stuff going on at the moment too, so if your body was physically resting, maybe that's what you needed, and your brain was okay to keep, scrolling or watching whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
I, again, like we were speaking about before, you better than you. There is a concept that was introduced to me years ago called active resting. And it's this idea of a bit like what they were talking about. So active resting is deliberately doing things that fill your cup. So active resting might be doing a little pruning in the garden, might be cooking or baking if that's your thing. It might be, paint by numbers, or, doing an activity that, going for a walk in nature, doing an activity that you enjoy purely for your own joy,
Yeah.
that fills you up. And I think, rather than just, Netflix or scrolling, I think it's important to acknowledge that there is also a role for that. Like, some days are doona days. Some days are like, you know what? I'm just binge watching this series, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm doing today. I call them doona days.
Yeah.
I'm having a doona day. That's it. This is all we can hope for today. And I think it's about finding that balance. Some days I feel energetically depleted, and I need an active resting day where I'm going to do some stuff. So this afternoon, I'm going to do a bit of gardening out in the front yard and prune the roses that have gone crazy, and a few other things like that, because I feel physically energetic, but I'm emotionally and energetically a bit drained, because I've had a crazy couple of weeks since we were allowed to go out and, have coffee in person. And I have done that, and I've sort of been all over the place. And I'm like, actually, I've done a bit too much peopling for me. So I need to refill that cup and do those active resting activities for me. But that's not to say that tomorrow is not a doona day. And I'm just like, I live here now. Somebody bring me coffee, I think it's about finding that balance, but being aware that there are different kinds of resting, which is probably what they were trying to highlight for you.
Yeah.
But if yesterday was a doona day, then it's a doona day. And I
Yeah.
think
They gave me some exercise to do.
it's important to not punish yourself for doing that as well. Like, sometimes I think that the self-talk can be just as toxic as making poor food choices. Or, you might decide to have a nice restful day, but then you spend the whole time beating yourself up in your head about all the things you should be doing and whatever. Well, then you're not really getting the benefit of the resting. So rest in whatever way, and allow it, accept it, enjoy it, recognize that you're doing something for yourself, rather than lying there relaxing, thinking about the laundry and the dishes and the stuff you've got to do for work. And, because that's going to take away from allocating that day to rest, or half a day or 2 hours or whatever. Yeah. Because I think what we tell ourselves is crucially important to how we feel.
Mm. Yeah.
You got to give yourself a break, right?
Everyone keeps
Okay.
telling me.
We're all just
no,
making this
I've got
up
shit
as
to
we go
do.
It'll be there. That's
I know.
one thing I've learnt, you know, the laundry will be there tomorrow. It's not going anywhere. If I don't get it done
It's
today, it's
mainly
okay.
the stuff that I'm doing for other people. That's where
Mm.
I'm like, I'm going through all this pain and tiredness and frustration so they don't have to.
Yes, the
Uh,
curse of the martyr.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think we are typically, as women, really good at that. We're really good at putting ourselves on the bottom of our own priority list and supporting others
Mm,
and sacrificing for them. You know,
yeah.
exactly what you've just said. I'm going to go through the pain and the stress and the fatigue so they don't have to.
Yeah.
Um, so what does that do for them? What does that do for them if you do that? What opportunity are you taking away from them by doing things for them?
That's actually a good one.
Because as we were saying before about getting outside the comfort zone,
Mm,
all growth happens outside the comfort zone. Growth only occurs when you're uncomfortable. My son's hermit crabs are on the floor next to me here, right? When they outgrow their shell and they get too big and they become uncomfortable, that's when they shed and they become bigger, the next version of themselves, and they get a new shell. And it's that leveling up.
yeah.
Right, and we do that as human beings. But if you have if there's no challenge, if there's no struggle, if there's no uncomfortable, this is too small now, then there's never a requirement for leveling up and growth.
Mm,
So sometimes I've had to pull back on my own helping, and I'll do it, and because I realize I'm actually robbing them of that opportunity for their own growth, for their own uncomfortable, which means that they get to stay where they are, and I'm alleviating some of their distress perhaps, or pain, or nuisance, or whatever.
yeah.
um but then they don't have to go through that process of comfortable, uncomfortable growth.
Yeah.
I'm actually taking that away from them because I'm so eager to relieve everybody else's stress or anxiety or worry.
Mm,
And in the meantime, we burden ourselves with everybody else's stuff.
yeah.
And I think it's just a practice. I think it comes with practice. My hashtag of the week has been no is a sentence.
Yeah.
No as a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, no.
I
And getting
don't
comfortable
remember
with
the last
that.
time I said no to someone.
Yeah, I find it really challenging.
Yeah.
I find it really challenging, but I think there comes a point where you've got to um you've got to weigh up your sanity. Like how much burden and fatigue and responsibility are
Mm,
you willing to take on? Because probably like me, you've done this circle multiple times and get to the point of collapse or burnout or exhaustion, or
yeah.
you know so let's learn from that. This is the lessons that I've learned, is to go, right, well, hang on a minute, before we get to the point of I've got nothing left and I just can't. Okay, hang on, what are like 3 steps before that, and how does that feel? And at that point,
Mm,
what do I need to do? What do I need to change?
yeah.
And that's about boundaries. And a beautiful friend of mine I spoke to earlier this week gave me a mantra. I'll show you this is my little mantra. Everything is on post-it notes in my life. And this is my filter. So as opportunities or people asking me to do stuff, or, would you like to speak here? Can you run a workshop here? I'm going to run it through this filter, and it says, does it make me happy? Does it make me better? Does it make me money? And does it make my heart sing? And if it's not going to hit, 3, maybe all 4 of those,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it.
Mm,
And I'm going to give this a shot for 6 months. and see how I feel in myself. Because I'm like you, I'm sick of being exhausted. I'm
Yeah.
sick of being drained. I'm sick of being at that, you know, when the line goes just past the E on the fuel tank, when it's like we're actually past empty. We're still moving, we're still going. So there's some
Still
sort
going.
of like, emergency tank fuel we're running on, but I'm
Yeah.
actually past empty. I'm so drained. And I think a lot of us get to this time of year and think, oh God, I've got to get through Christmas. And, and it's I didn't save up. I didn't save up energy for December. I haven't been putting it away in a little special pocket and going, I'll pull that out and I'll do bloody, Christmas shopping and having everybody at my house. And once again, it snuck up on me, and I seem to do this every year. So I'm looking forward to using that method, trying out that mantra and asking myself those questions, running it through that filter, and then see how I feel in 6 months.
Yeah.
And see if that has an effect on that, like, oh, I just can't do it anymore. Because I got to break that cycle for myself.
Yeah.
So I can actually, somebody else I was speaking to, and they were like, can you send me those questions?
Yeah. Can you?
I'm like, we need to share this around. This is genius.
I need those questions.
I'm gonna credit Sharon Kafoa, who gave me those questions, and I'm like, this is gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every woman I know, and not just women, but every woman I know is like, I need them questions.
Even just waking up and looking at my day and asking myself those questions, which has probably changed the aspect of my whole day. Like, am I doing things that aren't fueling me? And it's just
it's a complete shift in focus from things that need to be done to things that you want to do. And what often happens when I get in this cycle of doing, a human doing rather than a human being, is that I lose fun, I lose wonder, I lose joy, I lose the things that are the first to drop off when I get busy and fall into overwhelm, is the things that make me happy, which kind of sounds insane, right? But that's the door. That's spending time with my son. That's sitting on the floor playing Lego. That's doing my creative arts projects. That's all the stuff that I'm like, I don't have time to do it because I've got to do this, this, and this. And I said I was going to prepare a slide deck, and I said I was going to do this presentation, and I drop off those things that fill my cup, those things that make me go, yeah, that was fun, I really enjoyed that, and I'm like, well, okay, well, what if I flip this around? What if I flip that around for 6 months, and for 6 months I prioritize the stuff that makes me go, yeah, which is having conversations and speaking to people, and speaking at events where I really feel like people are hearing what I'm saying and they're taking something and it's, helping, I'm sharing something of value. That's the stuff that lights me up. That's the stuff that makes me happy. When someone's like, oh, okay, there's been stuff this year that I'm like, I can do it, help people do things that they're very buzzed about. And I've supported them in that, and I've helped them in that with varying levels of effort. But it's not my jam. I'm like, how would life be different if I spent at least the first half of the year? I have a suspicion what's going to happen is I'm going to get to June. I'm just going to be like, I'm just doing this now. Like, I don't want to go back to doing shit because I have to, or I feel obliged, or because I can, or because I like to help. I'm just going to probably, I imagine I'm just going to stick to the cool stuff and just be like, this is all I do now, is stuff that lights me up, that makes me excited, that makes me happy, makes me better, makes me money, and or makes my heart sing, and any combination of those. And what would that be like? Imagine getting up every day and knowing that you're only doing things that hit those targets.
Yeah.
You'd be bouncing out of bed going, ooh, I get to do that today. Right. I know. It's such a
Yeah.
simple shift. So simple, but not necessarily easy, because there's so much chatter about the things that you have to do. And
Mm.
that's, I think therein lies the challenge, is that internal conflict of, yeah, but I should be doing, you know,
Should.
should, I think, is one of the worst. It's the worst word in the English language.
Yeah.
Should is a shaming word.
Yeah.
You should know how to do that already. You should have done that.
Mm.
I should already be further down the line, whatever. So
Yeah.
it's a shaming word, and it's completely demotivating. Should is not a word that makes you go, yeah, I should do that, right? Like nobody says that. People will say like, oh, I want to do that, or I can do that, or I choose to do that.
Mm.
But should is like, ugh, it's such
Yeah.
a
Noticed that a
weighty.
few years ago. I'm like, every time I say should, I have this overwhelmed sense of guilt. And I'm like,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I
I
should I,
stopped saying it
I
because
should eat better. I should exercise more. Like, yeah, okay. Do you
like
know
I
what?
know I
Like,
should do these things, but I'm going to put all this guilt and shame on myself and don't end up doing it, and then just keep repeating
guilt.
the pattern.
Can you imagine if guilt and shame were motivating emotions? I would weigh half what I weigh, and I'm like, my skin would be clear. Like, oh my God. If you could layer that guilt and shame, and then it actually made you change shit in your life, like I would be flying. Like I'd be a millionaire. I'd have a Lamborghini in the garage. Like, but they're not. They're very demotivating, heavy. Bleh, that puts you in that state, and then you're like, well, I'm just going to eat a 12-pack of cinnamon donuts, because you're like, yeah, they're not motivating feelings, whereas choice and options and empowerment are motivating. They move you to go and do the next thing. And that's why I'm so passionate about personal empowerment and getting people to a point where they're like, hey, you know what? It's my life. And if I don't like what's happening in my life, I'm going to change shit.
Yeah.
Right. And that's ultimately the choice that I made, diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, was like, well, this is what you have now. This is what you need to learn to live with. This is what you have to manage. And I went, I don't want to. But I don't want to. Can I not? Is there an option B where I don't?
Yeah.
Because that sounds shit. And it was that empowering realization that, like, hey, you know what? It is my life. And I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be sick on the couch. I don't want to be angry at my kids for no reason. I don't want to be managing, which I don't know anyone that like manages their mental health very well. Like everyone I know that is told that they have to manage their mental health is like coping. Um, when things move to existence, survival, rather than living. Whereas when you make a choice, this is my life, this is what I want to do with my life, this is how I want to feel in my life, and reverse engineer a plan.
Yep.
If I want to be there, what are the steps? How do I work my way backwards? So here I am, here's where I want to be. How do I reverse engineer a structure or a plan or a system that's going to get me there?
Yeah.
And if I hadn't made that decision, I'd still be on the couch.
Yeah. So how do you get up to that point of making that decision?
Ray, if I could bottle that, I'd be a millionaire.
Yeah.
In my case, I'd been sitting on the couch for 3 or 4 months trying on what I call a victim state, trying on, okay, well, this is me now. I have these mental health conditions, and I'm going to collect a pension. I was 34. My youngest was 2, I think, at the time. And my older kids were at primary school. And I tried that. I tried 4 months of like 3, 4 months on the couch of like, oh, well, okay. Well, my best years are behind me. And, I was reminiscing about all the work I'd done as a paramedic and all the lives I'd saved and brought babies into the world. And like, um, it's that movie quote, I used to be a contender. I used to be someone, Um, and I would look back and just it'd make me miserable thinking that was over. I was done. I'm finished. My life is finished. My functional work life, my engagement in society, my contribution to my community, all of that was now done because I am sitting on the couch with PTSD, anxiety, depression, fibromyalgia. And this is who I am now.
Yeah.
And I gave it a shot, honestly. I tried it. I tried it for 3 or 4 months, wallowing. And in my case, I just got sick of myself. I was like, oh, I don't want to whinge about my life anymore. I just got sick of hearing my own complaints and my own misery. I was like, all right, that's enough. This is not okay.
Mm.
And I realized I've been put on a temporary disability pension at 34. And at the time I wasn't suicidal anymore. So I was like thinking about my future. And I was like, I don't want to spend another 34 years on this couch
Yeah.
reminiscing. This is not a life.
Mm.
So what do I want to do? And I had no idea, but I knew what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And that moving away from energy. So human beings, there's sort of what we call meta programs, and we do both, but you're either mostly a moving away from person, like you go, this situation is crap, or this person is crap, or this job, or whatever, and I need to move away from it. So I'm leaving. Or we're a moving towards person where we set goals and we get an idea and we're like, that's what I want. I am going for it. The professional athletes are like, I want to win gold at the Olympics and I'm going to work my ass off to be that person that can do that. Right. And they're moving towards motivated because they've got a goal. They've got something they want to achieve. I'm not necessarily a moving towards person. I'm more a moving away person. And often what we do as people is we need them moving away from to give us that initial kick that to get us moving, and then we can start setting goals and go, now I know where I'm headed. But I had none of that. I didn't know where I was headed, didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I just knew I didn't want to live it on the couch. And so it was enough for me to get me off and start looking for answers, start asking questions, talking to people, and trying to find, how can I not be there anymore? I don't know where I'm going, but I don't want to be there. How do I not be there anymore? And a series of conversations led to ending up at a coaching school and started 18 months of I was like a thirsty woman in the desert when it came to education and learning.
Yeah.
I was like, I got taught, basic coaching skills and how to get people from here to there, and then I learned NLP, and then I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then I did master prac of NLP, and then I did behavioral profiling. And then I was like, what else do you have? What else can I learn about people? Because everything that I was learning, I was applying to myself and I was integrating for myself rather than keeping it as a abstract concept. Like one day I could use this to help other people. I was integrating all of it as I went along over that 18 months. And by the end of that, I was off my medication and symptom free. And then about 6 months later, officially went for a independent medical examination. And they said, you don't tick the boxes anymore. You don't have PTSD. And I was like, cool, awesome, job done. I've got stuff to do, and so I was lucky in that I think I probably had about 2 years before I was diagnosed looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that now. I can see the symptoms and short temper, and I was not coping, and my mental health was not good for 18 months or 2 years before I was my job ended, my career ended as a paramedic, and then I probably had it for maybe 2 years in the healing process.
Yeah.
Um, and I think if I live, my grandma's 93. So, geez, if I make it to 80
Yeah.
and 4 years of my life was spent with mental health challenges and coming out of them, that is a very small percentage of my life.
Mm.
And that was my goal. I don't want this to be my existence forever. So I spent 30, odd years of my life without this stuff. How do I get to not having it again? And so as I get older, we're now 5 years down the line, and I get further away from that little short period of my life, and I keep stacking up good years, better years. They're not all great, right? um, that little space in the middle becomes smaller and smaller and smaller as I get older and older and older, and I'll be able to look back at, in 20 years time at 60,
Mm.
and go, right, yeah, that bit in the middle was rocky, you know. But I had an incredible career beforehand. I have a beautiful family, and I've been able to have so many opportunities since. So it's less impactful, and I'm grateful for that, and I feel blessed for that, and I recognize that a lot of people being challenged by mental illness have done for decades, for years and years, and I'm so lucky. I feel lucky, and as I said, grateful that I was able to minimize the impact in my life, the duration in my life. I'm not like, and everybody can do that. Like, I recognize that that's an achievement. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Mm. For what you were saying before, would have been like 15 years ago now, 14, 15 years ago, I was suffering from PTSD and anxiety and depression, and like a huge event happened, and I had to get myself out of it, which took every little thing that I had within me to be able to do that. And I could not see in front of me. I couldn't see what was
Yeah.
going to happen. And depression hit hard then, even though I knew it was the right decision to make.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
None of this is easy.
no.
I mean, I'm all unicorns now, but Jesus, it was not puppies and sunshine. I was talking to a friend of mine. We're talking about personal development and personal growth, and that hermit crab, expansion of yourself and leveling up. It's not glitter farts and rainbows. It's fucking hard work. Like, I don't know if I could say that on your podcast,
You
Lucy.
can say whatever you
Try and stop me. And we were talking about, this journey. Everyone talks about the journey and the path to, wellness, and it's all very lovely. And, if you're a little bit woo-woo, and there's just the conversation around it is like, and I've transformed, and the reality of growth is far more like peeling all of your skin off and running down the street and having people throw vinegar at you as you go. That is a better metaphor for growth. It's fucking hard, and it really hurts, and you want to give up like every moment of every day and crawl back to your comfort zone, like, please just, help me, someone get a blanket. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to embark on, and it's not an easy thing to go through. But when you're knee deep in shit, you got to keep moving. Don't stay there and pitch a tent and make it your home. Like, get to the other side, get to the next shoreline, keep going. So I'm never gonna, bullshit people that like, oh, it was, I went on this 18-month, spiritual exploration. Nah, it was shit. Like
Yeah.
it was really hard. But what I near guarantee is that it's damn well worth it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't flick my life on elements of my life on my worst enemy. So yes, I was an ambulance paramedic. Yes, that contributed to my PTSD. I'm a dual rape survivor. That contributed to my PTSD. I've got intergenerational trauma. All four of my grandparents are Holocaust survivors. That contributed to my PTSD. So there are events and circumstances in my life where I would not wish them on anybody. But I am at the point now in what is called in the biz post-traumatic growth that I'm so grateful for all the shit,
Yeah.
because it's got me to where I am now, and where I am now most of the time rocks. Again, still an allowance for doona days, to be clear,
Yeah.
but most of the time, on balance, life's pretty good, especially when I compare it to the darkest of the dark, the worst of the
Yeah.
those really dark periods. And I was suicidal at times,
Yeah.
multiple times. In terms of, I had suicidal intrusive thoughts. So I would find myself sort of daydreaming about driving into a tree. The sort of same way you might fantasize about a handsome boy, or, there's like you
Yeah.
find yourself sort of distracted about it.
Mm.
I didn't know that they were intrusive thoughts at the time. I just kept thinking about driving into a tree. To be clear, I was not suicidal in intention.
Mhm.
So I have been in the past, sort of, 17 years old and whatnot. But in this period, in my early 30s, I had the thoughts. They kept visiting.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the intent, because I had my beautiful baby, and I would never. I think also, particularly as an ambulance paramedic, I've attended several suicides, and to see what's left for the family, and how they, that's a we all leave ripples, and I talk about ripples a lot. We all leave ripples in the world, and some of them we're aware of them, and some of them we're not.
Mm.
But your existence, every single person's existence, has an effect on other people.
Yeah.
And it may be people that you don't interact with that are affected. And I think we typically underestimate how far our ripples go
Mm.
in life, and the impact that we actually do have. I went to a funeral very early this year, of someone that I hadn't spoken to for over a decade. And my part of my grief was that I never told him of the impact that he had had in my life, over 10 years earlier. He never knew. Now, this place was full of people. They couldn't close the doors, and sometimes it takes an event like that, like going to a funeral and realizing, shit, let's reflect on that. Who would come to my funeral? Like, I don't know, assuming it's not limited by a pandemic, and everybody that wanted to come could come.
Yeah.
My goal is to make big ripples. My
Mm.
goal, and positive ripples, and suicide, and um, those types of choices, they also make ripples, but they make ripples that leave a stain,
Yeah.
and having been in that space where your self-talk, and for anybody listening that's dealing with suicidal thoughts, or has somebody in their life that is dealing with that, and they don't get it, because I think if you've never been there, if you've never been down to the bottom of that hole, it can seem really extreme.
Mm.
To even be considering taking your own life can seem really like that's full on.
Yeah.
When you're in it, you've almost like gaslighted yourself. You've convinced yourself over a period leading up to that where, my self-talk was very much that as a paramedic, I would save people's lives by not turning up to work. You're so shit at your job. You would be helping the community because, that's my drive, by not showing up because you're so shit. You don't know what you're doing. You're the worst paramedic. Everyone would be better off if you didn't turn up.
Mm.
If you build on that, if you build that negativity and you keep building it, there is a point that comes where a suicidal person, honestly, and this is my own opinion, I'm not a psychologist, don't work for Lifeline, right? Where you reach a point where you honestly, truly believe it is your truth that everybody you love would be better off. You would be less of a burden if you were not present, if you weren't there.
Mm.
And so you're helping the people that you care about by taking yourself out of the equation.
Mm.
And that's why it seems like a viable option.
Yeah.
Now, I've spoken to many suicidal people over the last 5 years that I've been doing this work in mental health. And primarily, the what we uncover is that what the situation is that they are in the middle and there are circumstances around that they're not happy with: their job, their life, their emotional health, their relationships. There's circumstances in their life that are making them think about this as an option.
Yeah.
And so my questions are, if you had the relationship of your dreams, if you got the job you wanted, if you were living, in a household that supported you and, all that sort of stuff, would you still want to kill yourself?
Mm.
Oh, well, no, because then everything would be fine. Am I right? So it's not you that's the issue, it's the circumstances around it. So is it okay if we work on changing these circumstances? Let's get your mental health back on track. Let's get your physical health back on track. Let's look at how we can support your housing situation or your relationships or, whatever those other contributing factors are. Let's work on those circumstances, because I've never had somebody say, oh, yeah, if my life was perfect, I'd still want to end it. No one's ever said that to me.
Mm.
Right. So it's what is going on around the individual. That can feel very overwhelming. And the simplest thing to do, apparently, in that warped thinking space is, well, I'll just take myself out of this. I'll remove myself and then everything's sorted. But it's not,
Mm.
it just shifts the problem to somebody else, to other people. They've then got to deal with,
Mm.
what's left behind, as we all know, because it's such a huge issue in this country.
Yeah. There are times, a lot of times, where I have had those thoughts that it'd be easier. I had too much going on, and at the time you don't see a way out of it. You don't see those parts of your life improving. And those thoughts of it's better to take myself out of the equation isn't always necessarily I want to kill myself. It's
Mm,
it's just it's just better for everyone else.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think um, often it's misunderstood as a selfish decision, when in actual fact, I think for a lot of people, what drives it is exactly the opposite. Is this sense of wanting to make everybody else's life easier by not having to deal with me and my shit.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, like we're doing them a favor, which must be warped thinking. That has to come from a place of a skewed lens. These people are not seeing the world clearly or as it is. I think it's important to uh, have really open conversations about mental health and about suicide, because if someone, for example, listens to, this podcast with Ree and goes, oh my God, those are the sorts of thoughts that I have. And it's not that I want to die. I
Mm.
just don't want to be in my current situation anymore.
Yep.
I just need things to change, but all the things that need to change are very overwhelming and I can't do it by myself. Okay, great. Well, that means that you need to reach out and get some help. And, if you're not sure where to go, message Ree, message Lisa, right? And we can point you in the right direction to change those circumstances. We're not meant as human beings to be solo creatures. Human beings are tribal creatures. We are meant to have support around us. We're meant to do life as a team member. So you got to get a team. If you don't have a team, you got to start gathering people around you that are going to help you go where you want to go.
Yeah.
And do what you want to do. We're not meant to do this by ourselves. We're just not built that way.
And that's a big thing. Like I've spent so many years saying, no, I'm my own person. I can do this myself. I don't need anybody. And when in fact I do. And
Yeah, we all do.
yeah,
And that's the thing. Like, it's not a flaw. It's not a character flaw. It's not a weakness. That's the nature of humanity, and it's changing that self-talk paradigm that, like, if I need help, it's a weakness. If I need help, then I've failed. Like, that's not true.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not true. And what we do is we reinforce that, month after month, year after year, and you develop this concept of, well, I've got to back myself, and it becomes truth. But basic human requirements are that we need to be with others. I mean, you're not even meant to buy a single chicken, Ree. You're not meant to have one chicken because they don't cope, right? You need to buy at least 2 or 3 chickens because they're meant to be with their kind. They're meant to be with others, right? Like, it's a chicken. One person on their own does not thrive.
Mm.
So our requirement for community and for network and for tribe is in our inherent nature as human beings.
Mm.
So it's not a failing. It's not a weakness. Oh, you're a person. Oh, how dare you be a person? You know, and if anybody needs permission, this is your permission. It's
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
It's okay. Take this, as Lisa said, it's okay for me to be a human being and need some support because we're not meant to do life alone. And in my workshop and my coming book, 7 Elements to Wellness, tribe is number 1. That's where we start, because to do every other aspect of life without tribe, which could be your family, it could be your roots, it could be, the people you come from, it could be the people you surround yourself with now, it can be offline, it can be offline, online, offline, both, either. Your tribe is your people, either your people by blood or your people by choice.
Yeah.
But we all need our tribe.
Mm.
Yeah, because we're not individual entities. We're part of a collective.
Yeah.
On many, many levels. And we could go crazy woo-woo on that one, right?
I've been to quite a lot of funerals, especially in the last few years. And one of them being a suicide. I think I was just, at the time I was so angry. I was angry at this person. And I was remembering the last time we were together and thinking if I did something or if I said something. But I had no idea. Even having conversations with her at the time, I had no idea that she would even consider something like that. And the next time I hear about her, she's gone, and I was just so angry at her. Like, how could she do that? Like, I didn't get it. And yeah, it wasn't until a few years later that I started having
Mm.
those thoughts, not in the sense of wanting to kill myself, but in the sense of, like we said, taking myself out of it just to
Mm.
make better off. And, you know, I think at the time, I think that's what she was thinking, but she just went through with it.
Yeah, it's just that extra half a step. You know, it's I've yelled. I've yelled at the top of my lungs, stop the world, I want to get off.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. I need a break. And I think overwhelm is a real element in the discussion around depression, anxiety, and suicidality. This absolute state of overwhelm. There's just too much input, too much pressure, and I'm crumbling under the weight.
Mm.
And for some people, that sends them down a depression spiral of inadequacy, beliefs about inadequacy. Oh, well, I'm not handling the pressure, so that be something wrong with me. I must be, insert failure list here.
Mm.
Or that overwhelm produces anxieties about all the things that must be done yesterday and last week, and I haven't even done that, and oh my god, and so that's, I think, part of the reason that I'm so passionate about boundaries and knowing your limits and accepting your humanity. And I don't know about you, but I'm wearing my undies on the inside. I'm not a superhero. Neither are you. I don't see people getting around with their undies on the outside, right? We're not superheroes. We don't have to save everybody. We
Mm.
don't have to do everything for everybody. We're just one person.
Yeah.
And being one person is not a failing. It's just the truth. And acknowledging that and loving that and accepting that and going, you know what? Me being one person means that no, I can't do that.
Mm.
Can you? No. I have a lot on my plate right now. I could do that in January. Oh, January. Well, that's when I can handle that, added responsibility or burden or, task, right? If that doesn't work for you, you can go find one other person who maybe has less currently on their plate and they can do it for you sooner.
Yeah.
And being, I think, self-forgiveness and self-acceptance in that of that's not, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm.
That's not a failing. That's not a weakness. That's going, hey, I'm just one person. I'm doing 75 spinning plates here, and I actually can't take any more plates. And that's okay.
Mm.
And most of us, particularly those that are, have been going, yeah, all right, I'll do it. Yeah, okay, sure, you can all come to my place for Christmas. Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. I'll do it. Yeah, right. Those of us that like habitually do that,
Mm.
it feels like it feels dramatic, right? It feels big to be like, no, that's not how, like, how could I say that out loud? It comes with practice, but it's a change for the good. When your comfort zone is uncomfortable,
Mm.
what's happening, right? So that's why I don't even like to call it the comfort zone. I call it the familiar zone
Mm.
because it's familiar and we will stay there even if it's uncomfortable
Yeah.
because it's familiar. So, but there's no growth in that,
Yeah.
right? So we'll stay there and be like, no, that's okay. How many times have you said, that's all right, I'm used to it?
I think my laugh gives that away. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's okay. It's all right. I'm used to
Mm.
it. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
Is
that's
that
me in a
something that
nutshell.
you yeah, is that something you should be used to? You know, like my father said, I'm sure I could get used to drinking a little bit of arsenic every day, but it's not something I want to get used to, like
And like the frustrating is I know I do these things and I recognize the patterns. And then when I see it in other people, I get frustrated.
because you're frustrated at yourself. And that's the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about humanity is that the things that annoy you in somebody else, you're like, why isn't she taking better care of herself? Like, and we'll tell all our friends in Facebook comments that they have earned a day off, like you deserve it, sister. And then we're like, yeah, no, that's fine. No, I'll just get it. I'll do it. And you're like, fuck, why do I always say this? Right. Like, so we see those behaviors in other people, it reflects on us, and we're like, God, that really annoys me that they're not standing up for themselves. It really annoys me that they're, being taken advantage of. It really, and it's so much easier to see that in other people. But it's all information. And what is highlighted to us in others is always reflected within us. So you can't see something in another person unless it exists within you or you wouldn't recognize it.
Yeah.
So the flip side of that is when you look at people, online or in the real world, and you think, wow, they have courage. They have bravery. They are strong. They are funny. They are fearless, right? Whatever things that you look at and admire, that also must exist within you,
Yeah.
or else you wouldn't recognize it.
That's actually really powerful because not a lot of people would see it that way. Like I want to be this and oh, I want to be that. Just like this person. I admire this about this person, when in fact they have all those qualities as well.
You have that.
Mm.
How would you know that you wanted to be courageous
Mm.
if you didn't know what courageous was?
Yeah.
And you know what courageous is because at some point in your past you've already done it. So it already lives in you. And what you're recognizing is that you want more of that,
Mm.
or you want to reconnect with that. And the irony is, like you said, you've already got it. It's
Yeah.
in there. You just got to dial it up
Yeah.
and give yourself opportunities to show yourself that you do have it. And sometimes that is having a challenge and giving yourself an opportunity to be courageous and be like, shit, I did it. It is in me. I do have it. I'm just like them.
Yeah. Then you need someone in your tribe to be there. And
Yeah.
I love that word so much, tribe, because it's not just having like someone there or having a group, it's having a tribe. It's having someone, like a whole group of people to support you and call you out when they need to. And
The tribe is your people, heart to heart, your people, and you can have a tribe of 3, you can have a tribe of 25, you can have a tribe of 1,000.
yeah.
It's not a numbers game. It's about who you resonate with and who resonates with you and who do you connect with. And and what we typically find is that your tribe is drawn to you based on your behaviors. So if people, because behavior is how we assess each other.
Yep.
So you might have negative self-talk, but not you specifically. A person might have negative self-talk, but portray themselves as, I'm banging, I've got my shit together, right? And that's how they present. They are going to attract people that are like, I've also got my shit together and I resonate with that, like, right?
Yeah.
Now, the people that they get may also have, secret self-worth issues, like who doesn't?
Yeah.
But they're going to be drawn to that portrayal. And that's a little bit where that fake it till you make it concept comes from, is like, if you step into the future version of you, the person of you want to be, and you start behaving that way, the universe will reward you in my term is the universe, right? Whatever vernacular you want to put around that. The universe will reward you with what you're portraying.
Mm.
So if you're a victim and you get bullied at school, you've been in, less than ideal relationships, that's what you're putting out. I am a victim energetically. Then you will be sent other victims so that you can all collect together and share misery, and the opposite energy, and you'll get bullies. My
Mm.
son was bullied at school, horribly bullied at school for most of his school career until he stopped playing the victim. And now the phrase is playing the victim, but it's not pretend, right? But that's to be clear. And as soon as he went, you know what, I'm just done with this. And he accepted himself for who he was. And he was like, well, okay, cool. I'm the weird kid that really likes Dungeons and Dragons and whatever else. And he embraced that. He had people coming to him that were like, the same flavor nerd. And he had a bunch of friends, and, and the bullies were like, oh, well, he's no fun anymore because we can't pick on him about being a nerd. Because he's like, yeah, I am. Oh, well, that's no fun.
Mm.
So your tribe will find you. If you don't like your tribe, if you don't like the people around you, shift something and your new tribe will be attracted to that.
Mm.
And you in the world finding other people's tribes that you're like, I like the cut of their jib. I'm going to go hang out with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it works both ways.
Mm.
But yeah, tribe is crucial because we're not meant to do it alone.
Yeah.
I have a unicorn tribe that I'm building.
I love that.
and the secret is we're all unicorns.
Mm.
Identical twins are not the same person. We're all individuals and unique and special. The unicorn thing, just quickly, the unicorn thing came around when I came out of the PTSD closet. And I said, hey, I had this and now I don't. And I feel great and you can too. And I had a whole lot of people telling me that wasn't possible. And if I have recovered or healed from PTSD, then I must not have really had it in the first place. Or that I was profiting off the illness of others, giving them false hope about the ability to fully recover from something that they had been told they will have for the rest of their lives. And that hurt a lot. A lot of that came from my ex tribe of emergency services. And it hurt for a while, and I sort of sat there bruised, and I was like, I thought they'd be happy. I thought everyone was going to go, oh my God, what's the secret, Lisa? How did you do it? And instead I got, well, you're full of it and you didn't really have it in the first place. And I realized what was happening was that by me speaking out and saying, I ticked the box, I got the DSM diagnosis, I ticked all the, bloody flashbacks and hypervigilance and all that. And now I don't. What they were hearing and taking on was, if I can do it, anybody can, which I don't think I've said that often because not everybody can. I think it's possible for everybody, but not everybody can. So they sort of felt like, she's saying that it's possible to get over this. So if I have it, and they were using that to beat themselves up because they hadn't made the progress that I had made or that they imagined had made. I was like, you know what? Well, then I'm a magical creature, right? Like I must be a magical made up creature. Apparently what I have done is impossible and I can't exist as someone who has recovered from this, PTSD, anxiety, depression, then I guess I'm a unicorn. And well, all right. And I've embraced that more and more.
Yeah.
And we've all got potential to become unicorns. And it's not, like I said, it's not all rainbows and glitter farts.
Yeah. I love that so much.
I'm not promising that it's going to be an easy trip, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you wanted to talk about on this podcast. We've been talking for like 2 hours.
It's it went completely different direction where I was going, which is absolutely great, because that's the whole point of this podcast, is just to have that conversation, just to talk about these things.
Is there anything in particular you wanted to ask
I had
me?
like a whole list of questions, and I haven't asked a single one of them. But that doesn't mean that I didn't get a lot out from this, because I got to ask some questions that came to me at the time, where I got to talk about things. And to be perfectly honest with you, this is the first time that I've publicly talked about my depression, my suicidal thoughts. I've never ever spoken to about it unless it's in, a closed room, where just because I had so much guilt and shame about it, I'm like, okay, I'm someone who's suicidal, or someone who has depression, anxiety. I think a lot of the time, when you get diagnosed with someone with PTSD and depression, it says almost like, this is who you are now. You are someone who has PTSD. You are someone who has depression, and you can talk about it, but you're always going to have this, when that's not always the case. Because I wouldn't classify myself as having PTSD anymore.
Well, and I think that language around it is so important. And so I'll never, people used to say to me, oh, do you work with PTSD? And I was like, no, I work with human beings who are currently experiencing the symptoms of PTSD. When you have a cold, you're not like, well, I'm a cold now. I'm a person with a cold, right? You're like, yeah, well, I'm still who I am. I just have a cold right now. I'm suffering the symptoms of cold. I have a snotty nose and my eyeballs hurt, right? Whatever. Why with mental health labels is there an adoption into our identity rather than, okay, well, that's something that I'm currently going through? And for me, that was a really important shift. It is important. Like, there are some people who prior to diagnosis are very lost and they're very stressed. Like, I feel I'm having these awful thoughts and I feel terrible, and I all this stuff is going on, and they're experiencing all of this. And then when they get a diagnosis, that comes as a relief, because they're like, right, that makes sense. I've got PTSD, I've got depression, I've got anxiety. That explains why I'm up at night and I can't sleep and I keep thinking about things, and then I think about the thoughts, and then I'm thinking about, why am I thinking about thoughts, right? And it gives them something to hold on to, that they're like, right, that is anxiety. Okay, cool. And so for those people, the label comes as a relief. The diagnosis comes as good. That finally makes sense. I'm not just nuts. There's a name for it, and there's a treatment pathway, and there's options forward, right? And for them, it can be comforting to receive that diagnosis. That was completely the opposite of the case for me. I got given those labels and I went, but I don't want them. I just want to be like, no, thank you. I just want to not have any of this. I just want to not be, I don't want to talk about my worst days of my life over and over again. I just want to be well and happy and healthy, and I'm just going to work towards that. So, but I think it's important to recognize that for some people, it does help them find their tribe to have the label, because then they know who they can talk to that's going to get it. And that's ultimately what we all want. Like, we started this conversation talking about, was about being heard and about being acknowledged. And so for some, that helps them be heard and be acknowledged. I never wanted to take that on as my identity. I never wanted to be a broken ambo with PTSD. I was, but I pushed back hard, and that's, you know, just my personality. I think I'm just stubborn. Um, so, but it's important to, you know, for some people it's a good thing and they find comfort in that. And if you, ultimately, to me, my measure is functionality and well-being, you know. And if holding on to a label saying I have anxiety empowers you to um arrange your life in a way that you find support through other people that have anxiety, or you can get resources, and it allows you to be your best self with anxiety, then awesome.
Yeah.
Hold that. Cool. That's good. If the label of I have anxiety is crippling, and it in my vernacular reinforces a victim mentality. I have anxiety, which means I can't dot dot dot, then maybe the diagnosis is not helping.
Yep.
Because it's not allowing you to be your best self. So you know, nothing in mental health is one size fits all. Nothing in mental health is a magic pill. You know, I know what worked for me. I've built models around what worked for me. I've written books about what worked for me,
Mm.
but I would never claim that I've got the solution.
Yeah.
I have a solution. I
Mm.
don't have the solution, because no two people experience the same label diagnosis the same way.
No.
Your anxiety is not the same as my anxiety. Your depression is not the same as my depression. Your PTSD is not the same as the next person with PTSD. We have our version of it. So the solution, you know, I've got a catchy t-shirt phrase, it's coming, which is wellness is a puzzle, not a pill, right?
Mm.
It's about finding those parts that you can put together and go, when I meditate and I go to my circle and I eat better and I exercise regularly and I have at least 2 doona days a week right now, right? Those are the pieces right now that make me feel my most well self. Cool. Awesome. I got told when I first got diagnosed, people were like, well, you need to do yoga and you need to eat kale
Okay.
because they're really healthy for you. And I was like, kale?
Yeah. No thanks.
And I went to yoga class. I was like, sure, I'll try anything. Like, you know,
Mm.
somebody could have suggested injecting some off. I was like, is that going to make me feel better? Because I'll give it a shot. I was like, what? I'll try anything. I just don't want to feel shit anymore. And I went to a yoga class. I was like, right, yoga. All right, let's give it a shot. Yoga's the answer, apparently. And it was awful. And it super heightened my anxiety, right? Because I'm like in this class and I'm, you know, downward dogging, and the teacher would move on to the next thing, and I'm like, I don't think I'm doing it properly. Like my brain, the self-talk was, I don't think I'm doing it properly. I don't think this is right. Why is she on the next one? I haven't even done the last pose. Oh my God. And I left there like I was like, all right, well, at that point in time, yoga was not one of my puzzles pieces. Like that was not good for me. I much prefer it now because I don't care if I get it wrong. But that's because I'm in a different space.
Yeah.
So what works for each individual has to be tried by that individual. And if it doesn't work, if you're like, oh, well, that's not my thing. Okay, cool. You've eliminated one option. Good. Which means you're getting closer to finding the things that do work for you.
Yeah.
And that's the journey, you know, is trying and failing and trying and succeeding and trying and going, you know. Now I don't mind a bit of kale every now and then.
I'll throw it in a smoothie, but I won't eat it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But it's not, you know, there's not one size fits all. And I think the more that we can both individually and organizationally and governmentally move towards models that support individualized mental health, everyone's going to be better off. Let's just have a conversation. There's, you know, there's no nothing no obligation, we'll just, let's have a chat,
Mm,
and start there. And if you want more of me, then we can work that out. And if you want me to point you in the direction of somebody else, that's an option. So, um, yeah, I think there really is no competition in mental health. We're all on the same team. We're all trying to support each other and help people be their best selves, whatever that means for them, not for me to decide, for them. Cool. Thanks so much for your time, Ray. I really appreciate the opportunity. I hope we've kicked off the
yeah,
uh,
it
the
was,
next the next round of podcasts. I'm sure there'll be some more incredible guests and really important conversations. I commend you for
yeah.
doing the work that you're doing in this
Oh, thank
space as
you.
well, and wish you best on your own mission moving forward.